If you've watched HGTV over the last few years, you've probably noticed one thing with a hardwood flooring, at least a trend anyway, and that's these floors that are called scraped floors or a hand scraped floor. Usually it's a pre-finished floor that's had some gouges, for lack of a better term, taken out, and those floors serve a couple of purposes. I mean, they have a little bit of a unique look. They've got some personality. Having that texture across the floor adds a certain look. But there's another reason that they're kind of popular, is that they show wear and tear a little less too. Since the surface isn't completely flat like a traditional sanded floor is, it's going to show scratches a little less. But like any hardwood floor, they're going to get some wear and tear. You generally don't want to sand these unless you have to, because you're going to have to sand that whole texturing off. That's a whole other video. But you do want to take care of them with some buffing and coating. The first thing that's going to be an issue with buffing and coating a scrape floor is that you can't just take and buff it with your normal procedures. The traditional buffing pads that I use, they're good for a flat, smooth, or flush floor, but there's going to be some issues if you try to buff a scrape floor or any kind of textured floor with your traditional methods. Of course, almost all the floors I deal with are a traditional sanded floor. It's flat, it's flush. I'm using my normal methods to buff it and coat it. If you've seen anything else I've done in buffing and coating, or maybe you've done it yourself, I take this maroon pad and I have these 220 grit little Velcro discs that go on here. But if you're going to buff and coat a scrape floor, you don't want to have this roughen up the top layer of the floor. You don't want to have these cutting into that higher spot of the floor and then totally missing the lower spot. So I'm just going to get rid of these. And I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to use a maroon pad or a similar between coats pad. I might rotate it out every few hundred feet, or at least vacuum it off, flip it over, any combination of that. But this kind of pad is pretty much all I'm going to use to buff that pre-finished scrape floor. That way I'm not going to knock off too much on those high spots. This has got just enough give. Those low spots are going to get hit too. So I'm sure there's some other stuff I got to tell you about. Let's go inside. Let's take a look at that floor. Of course, I'm going to vacuum this like I always do. Take the wand and hit that perimeter, get the stuff out of the corners, then I'll take the 10-inch vacuum brush and hit the middle. Then I vacuum it close, then I vacuum the middle again, and of course, finish it off with that last wand perimeter vacuuming. That always makes for a great vacuuming job. Vacuuming is so exciting. Hey, I just thought of something good to discuss. It's probably a good time to talk about coating a floor like this in sections. This thing is huge. It's over 1,000 feet. But there's a lot going on here. You've got the big area. That's pretty straightforward. But then you've got all these ins and outs. You got to work around these pillars. You've got to work around this, and where do I start and where do I stop? It's so confusing. I've been doing this for 28 years and I still have to take a minute and figure out the order in which I'm going to do everything. I'm just going to give you a quick recap on how I did this one. I basically split it into two sections and I just finished it up to the nearest board. Now, that's one place where these little bevels are going to come in handy because it gives me a nice easy place to stop. So here's basically what I did. I coated from this side up to like maybe 3 boards in, and then I just made a nice clean line. Of course I had to make sure I poured out enough that it was going to be enough to hit that line, but not too much. Same thing on the other side. I stopped right around that corner. Nice clean line. That way I can take a minute, go back to this side and do my final towel washing on this side. In this particular case, I'm going to go this way out the front door. A lot of times I'll go out the garage door. It just seemed like the right way to do it on this one. So after I washed this side out, I picked up where I left off, and you're going to start a new line and then work your way out the door. I think it sounds like I've been doing this forever, doesn't it? Oh well. It seems like a good time to get into the weeds a little bit, talking about urethane or talking about top coats. This is what is going on for the last coat today. Traffic HD commercial satin. The stuff is good. It's not indestructible, but it's a lot more resistant to scratches than some other regular finishes. But there's some tricks to using this. I mean, there's some tricks just to mixing this stuff up. Now they give you this little strainer. Oh shoot, where is it? Don't go nowhere. I'll be right back. Oh, is my mic cord gonna reach? I don't know. Hold on. There we go. You just gotta be prepared when you're filming. Anyway, the filter, the strainer that they give you to keep miscellaneous chunks from getting out of the, out of the bottle and out of the floor is this thing. Well, look at the holes in that thing. You're not gonna catch any real chunks, and when I say chunks, I mean just from shipping, this thing's gonna get a little bit of a ridge where there's gonna be little bits of finish that's dry. And I've had some other finishes like Mega where it's not a problem. Since this stuff is harder, I think it's more likely to get little bits of debris from that ridge. So this thing, in my opinion, doesn't really stop enough of that stuff. So what I always end up doing is I take this material. This is a strainer that's made for a 5-gallon bucket for straining out paint. It's a nice, pretty fine mesh, but it's still open enough that it's not gonna slow you down. Some of those finer, really fine meshes, this stuff's so thick it's not gonna get through there. So what I do is I take this little bit here, and I call this a pro tip. I put that material on top of this regular strainer, and I pop it in here, and get it all the way down. Then I'm gonna take my knife and just cut that off, and now I've got a nice strainer that's right in the bottle. I don't have to do anything else to it. It's gonna be filtered coming out of the bottle, so I'm pretty confident about that. Now I have not catalyzed this one yet, but I'll catalyze this, then I'll shake it up properly, and then I'll put this in here, and I don't have to worry about them little bits coming through. Yeah, let's do some other tips. So one thing I need to do a little bit different than a traditional buff and coat job on this house is because it's the scraped pre-finished floor, we're gonna have more surface area. We've got not only the ups and downs from this hand scraping that makes those little hills that give it that pleasant look, but also there's beveled edges in here that are going to take a little more urethane than a flat floor. I'm very used to getting a specific amount of footage per gallon from the urethanes I use. I'm gonna have to bump that up a little bit because there technically is more surface area here. Even if you're diligent about keeping the poly coat consistent, I'm still going to lose a little bit there, and I'm going to lose a little bit more in here. I'm hoping I can keep it to 10%. We'll do this coat and I'll get back to you. Hey, it's that time. I gotta ask you to consider subscribing to my goofy little channel here. My little home improvement, hardwood flooring advice, how-to tip channel. Anyway, yeah. I think it's still free to subscribe. Is it still free to subscribe? Yeah, it's still free. Do it. Do it. That's enough filming myself coating. Back to work. So let's recap the job in Lake Elmo here. We took this scrape floor, pre-finished hand scrape floor, buffed it with just the red pad, vacuumed it twice, washed it off, and I put 2 coats of Traffic HD satin on it. That's going to be pretty durable. Oh, dang it, I said pretty again. That's going to be very durable. It's going to hold up quite a while. It's going to work out pretty good. Oh, said it again. Well, I think that's a wrap on this Lake Elmo coating job. Just a few insights into how to buff and coat a scraped floor and how to keep them lasting longer, since it's just not practical to sand those things as often it is with a traditional floor. So hopefully you got a little bit out of this. Please consider subscribing, and see you in the next video, gang. Peace. So one thing I have to keep in, you suck.